Well, I do feel like I watched the first episode of this season and I was like, we have to start a podcast about this.
Hello and welcome to Baggage Claim, an unofficial Jetlag the Game companion podcast. We're here to unpack Season 13 Schengen Showdown Episode 6, the surprise finale. I'm Kira.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jaya.
Casey, have you admired any scenery recently?
Yes, I live in Washington, D.C., so we recently had peak cherry blossom season. So I was enjoying and admiring all of the beautiful flowers.
Jaya, what about you? Have you admired any scenery?
I think the most recent pretty thing in the universe that I admired was a picture of a galaxy because I was adding it to some slides. I also live a couple hours south of Casey, and so a few weeks earlier we had the most beautiful plum blossoms, and they were so fun.
That sounds stunning. And also, you might say a galaxy, the ultimate scenery for everyone.
What?
It's around us at all times. It's always there.
That's true. We are in one.
We are in one.
Off to a crazy start.
Kira, how about you?
I suppose it's also been nice springy weather. There's been like lots of flowers on trees. Last weekend I Googled park and then just navigated to a park. And so I walked to this like sort of marshy area where there were a lot of swans and ducks. And I sat on the pavement and watched the ducks and felt really Holden Caulfield. But it was really beautiful and like springy flowers, petals on the ground. I live much further than a couple hours drive south of Casey. You might say in a different continent, but still beautiful flowers.
Yeah, you might say if we tried to drive to visit you, something would go terribly wrong and that something would probably be hitting the ocean.
Yeah, you might get stuck. You might get stuck on the way to the UK. Well, let's jump into the recap. This episode starts with the two teams neck and neck at the end of game day 4. Sam and Tom with 8 points as they attempt to lock Finland, and Ben and Adam just 1 point behind as they race to steal Sweden. Ben finds a jungle skog first in his mind palace and then in IKEA, securing Sweden for Team Badam. Adam then carries their new monkey plushie with him throughout the rest of the game, adding some whimsy to the Nordic train system. To the east, Sam and Tom take their time to practice and prepare for their Angry Birds challenge to lock Finland, but neither getting angry nor staying calm works, and Tom unfortunately flubs it. This means that Sam and Tom have failed 3 challenges in a single day, which is a real it's so over moment for them. Sam and Tom return on the morning of game day 5 with a new strategy to speedrun Lithuania, Poland, and Croatia, and they begin by heading to the airport to fly to Vilnius, Lithuania. Meanwhile, Ben and Adam make their way into Copenhagen to try to steal Denmark. They opt to buy tickets in advance for their next flight to Norway so they can go past airport security to the elusive early morning Lego store. They leave themselves 0 wiggle room for the 45-minute challenge, but luckily, they use their self-proclaimed intimate relationship with Legos to crush this challenge in only 24 minutes. Incredible stuff. It's at this point that some major travel bad luck starts to hit. Sam and Tom's perfect connecting flight to Poland is sold out, and they aren't even able to fly up to Tallinn, Estonia, because of the snowstorm. Badam decide to fly to a small airport in Norway, but their perfect connection to Poland is also unbookable, leaving them no choice but to stick around in Norway for a little while longer. They complete the challenge to lock Norway, which guarantees that Team Sam and Tom could never make up the difference. Ben and Adam win the season, and I'd argue they win as underdogs, claiming their first team victory since Capture the Flag Japan in Season 6. To conclude our recap, I've come up with a title to highlight the most important moment of the episode. Everything is awesome.
A great song.
Just like the Lego movie.
Just like the Lego movie. I feel like it sort of works for Team Badam's actual performance, where everything sort of goes great for them.
It's a real gritted teeth, everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome.
For Sam and Tom.
It's a tough end to the season for them.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's so brutal.
I was looking through my notes, and I think the one idea that I have is just a quote from the episode, and it feels a little bit too bleak, but Tom at one point said, "Let's get out of here before Helsinki freezes over," and I really loved that.
It was really good. It was a great joke.
That was really good.
Well, with that, I'll hand things over to Casey for the Strat Chat.
Welcome back to the Strat Chat, our segment where we break down the strategy and gameplay of the episode. This was, surprisingly, the finale of the season. So I want to do two things in this segment. Discuss the strategy played by both teams in this final episode, and reflect on the strategies from across the entire season. In this episode, Sam and Tom go full steam ahead on their strategy to claim as many countries as quickly as possible without stopping to attempt the challenges to lock those countries. They are immediately stuck without a good route out of Lithuania, which obviously grinds their odds to a standstill. But, Kira and Jaya, what do you think of this strategy heading into the endgame?
I was honestly really hoping the strategy would work. I thought it would be really exciting to see such a big change in the strategy and see it be fruitful. I think they got really unlucky with Lithuania being the first place they went, because out of all the places that they could have gone to start this, I think Lithuania was probably the one that had the most connections to places that were just getting hit by weather.
Yes, totally.
And so I think that was just really unlucky, and I really wish that that strategy had panned out.
Was there just simply too much risk in this strategy to pull it off without everything going exactly to plan?
I think maybe yes. And the reason I'm saying that it was really risky is specifically because of the rule where you're not allowed to have more than one plane ticket at a time, which is something that honestly I had forgotten about because it doesn't come up a lot earlier in the season. But I feel like previously we've seen close connections and stuff like that with trains a lot, where the mentality is sort of, if we can physically make it to the train station, we will get on the train. Or, you know, we'll race through the train station and then we'll find our connection. But what I forgot about is the issue of, if it's a really short connection, you might not be able to get a ticket. And so because of that, I feel like it's really hard to bank on following this particular route if there's nothing you can do to ensure that it'll happen.
I also think that it was hard to watch them go full commitment to this strategy without a backup plan. And I understand that they were really hopeful that this would work out, and it was kind of their best bet as Ben and Adam were starting to get those steals. But I just think it was really tough to see it kind of falter at the first step and not be able to bounce back. But should they have been more reactive to Ben and Adam and pivoted their strategy once the Sweden and Denmark challenges were being stolen?
I don't know how they would have been able to react to that, because they really don't have much to steal back from Badham, and that is the strength of that strategy. Was we knew that it was going to be powerful once they got to the end game to have a lot of countries already locked, and I think that played out exactly how we thought it would, which, yay, nice, love that for us. But also that makes it kind of unfortunate for Sam and Tom, because there wasn't much they could do in a reaction.
Yeah, like they did talk about going to Liechtenstein, which I thought was smart, and I'm glad they were thinking about it. What I thought was interesting is that I sort of thought that because they had such a big travel budget left, they would basically be able to get anywhere in the Schengen zone that they wanted to go. And so I think what's really tough about them flying to Lithuania is that it just didn't have that many places that they could fly to. Like, it wasn't flying to lots of other hubs, or the hubs that it was flying to were also getting impacted by weather. And so it was such a bummer that they had money to spend. Like, they could buy their way out of any problem, but they couldn't.
What I was kind of interested in, and I understand why they didn't go for this ultimately, because it just takes time and wastes budget. But it seems like they were really limited by the optionality out of Lithuania. And I was wondering if there were any flights to a country that was a hub that had already been claimed, like Germany, like France, that then would have been able to get them elsewhere. And I understand that that was, again, kind of wasting travel budget to go somewhere that didn't ultimately gain them any points. It was just, you know, I was rooting for them. It was hard to see them stuck in that airport, although the most beautiful airport. Oh, my goodness.
Airport. Because we saw them do that in an earlier episode of the season where they went back to Belgium, went back to Brussels to get a better flight out, I would assume that that's something that they were thinking about. And so I guess it's just they're not going to really tell us about it if it's, okay, we checked this and there are no good options.
That's fair.
Yeah. I wonder if part of it was also flight times, and also like amount of time in the air, because at this point the game days are so short. And so I don't remember if it was on the layover or in the episode where they were talking about how there was like one flight they could have taken into Spain, but it would have wasted like 4 hours in the air. And so then with airport time and getting on the plane and deplaning, that's like half of your game day, and you're only getting one country. And so it does make sense to me that at this point in the game, their two options are really get a couple of countries and flip Liechtenstein, or just get as many countries as humanly possible. And both of those require you to make these risky connections, because if you were to fly to a big travel hub like in Germany, you're wasting time on that flight that you should be spending being as direct as possible, because the game days are so short.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting, just thinking about it geographically, because a lot of the travel hubs are more central or a bit farther west in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's probably why the Eastern Europe zone was the last hub to start being claimed, because they're the hardest to get to. But that also means they're the hardest to get out of.
Yeah. I also will say, as much as I was rooting for them, when their strategy started to be to talk about relying on stealing Liechtenstein or Norway, I was like, uh-oh, that is a big risk for this team, which has not had the best luck with challenges. Although it seems like the Liechtenstein challenge, which was to name the other country that's double landlocked, according to the layover, which I just need to say, I need to claim this for myself.
We talked about
this in an earlier recording of this podcast. We talked about how Liechtenstein and Uzbekistan are the two double landlocked countries. Maybe I will clip that and play it here to prove that we knew that, which is just really funny.
Liechtenstein is, I think, the only triply landlocked country.
It is one of two, and the other one...
One of two? What's the other one?
Oh wait, is it triple landlocked?
No, doubly landlocked.
Okay, the other one...
Yeah.
The other one is Uzbekistan.
I do think that is a challenge that it feels likely that Sam and Tom would maybe know. I think that they would maybe get that one, and then ultimately we realized that the Norway challenge was very doable. But I think just relying on that would have been a tough strategic pivot. Meanwhile, Ben and Adam doubled down in attempting challenges to steal Sweden and Denmark. They succeeded at both, resulting in a 4-point swing. Then, instead of following behind to Finland, they decided to fly to Norway instead. What do you both think of their strategy this episode?
I thought it was honestly flawless. I think that they really know their strengths. They know they're good at challenges, and also they're willing to go even if they're going to fail. I think I maybe said this in the last episode. I think that a 4-point swing is just always going to be worth it. Like, I think even if they had failed all 3 challenges, even if they had failed the Netherlands, Sweden, and Denmark, I honestly still think that would be worth it, because that's their way to win, is to try to flip countries.
I don't think they would have necessarily had such a clear-cut victory or even a path to victory at all had they not made those steals, but I do still agree. I think it would have been one of their best plays.
Looking back on the season as a whole, I would characterize Ben and Adam's strategy as primarily focusing on scooping and stealing, aka predicting where the other team is headed and planning on beating them there or attempting the challenge to steal the country. Whereas I would describe Sam and Tom's strategy as having a focus on claiming countries without always doing the challenges, aka moving quickly through countries with an optimized transit route. What do you think about these strategies overall? Were there any times where you think one team should have shifted strategy or changed things?
I think that what we've seen in this season is that locking countries mattered a lot more than I think either team really thought. And specifically where I think this played out the best was for Sam and Tom when they were doing their Hungary, Czechia, Slovakia circle. I think that was their best strategic move, where they sort of combined both of these strategies, where ultimately their strategy here was to have the optimized transit, and they were sort of like, if we don't lock a country, it's fine. But the reason it went so well is because they locked every country. And so I think that, like we've talked about before, these two teams have their two different things that they're good at. Adam are really good at challenges. Sam and Tom are super in touch with good transit times. But I think that locking countries was ultimately the thing that mattered more because it guarantees you the points, whereas otherwise, like, it's just so hard to predict.
I think what might have been Sam and Tom's downfall at some point is that they seemed to go back and forth between what they were prioritizing, and it wasn't quite consistent. And I think they just got really unlucky with which one they picked to do when.
Yeah.
I think that the timing of when they were focusing on challenges versus claiming was so key. And I think taking a step back, I do wonder if it was more important to claim and lock countries early. And I liked the idea of speed running at the end. Obviously, it didn't work out, unfortunately. But I think if going into those final 2 days, they had left just 1 or 2 fewer countries unlocked on the board, that would have made a big difference because there were so many variables. I think it was totally possible that Ben and Adam got to IKEA and didn't have enough time to find the Jungle Sagog, or they decided not to go to the airport, they went to the Lego store, they bought a different set. Like, I think that there were so many variables that if there were only just 1 or 2 fewer countries for Ben and Adam to steal, that could have made the difference. But I also think, I want to give credit to both teams, even though Ben and Adam did win the season, it was neck and neck for the majority of the game.
Yes,
they were close in this one. It was
so close in a way that I really did not know who was going to win. So I would ask, what strategy do you think ultimately proved to be the right one without considering luck or unluckiness in the equation?
I think either strategy would be the right one, and it comes down to the luck. Because once Sam and Tom's luck really turned on them and nothing was going right anymore, that's when they started losing.
I think that they were both really strong strategies, and I also do think they were some of the most coherent strategies in all of the seasons of Jet Lag. Sometimes it does feel like they're just kind of trying one thing, then trying another, and it does feel like both of them did have relatively overall consistent strategies, even if there were some pivots in the middle of the game. But this was just a really interesting season to chew through on the strategy side, so I really enjoyed
this was fun.
that.
I feel like this is a great season for us to start podcasting about it, because this is the one that, A, they had consistent strategy, and B, it did some real weird things.
There's so much to talk about. It's crazy from beginning to end.
Well, I do feel like I watched the first episode of this season and I was like, we have to start a podcast about this. Well, I will pass things back off to Kira.
Now that we've seen all of the challenges in the whole season, I think it's time to decide which challenge was the best. Ooh. So we're going to do this bracket style where we go through the challenges in pairs and keep picking which one is better until only one remains. Best is obviously going to be super subjective, but I have 4 kind of broad categories that might be helpful to think through. The first category being best representation of the country. So is this challenge actually country specific? The second being the most well-balanced challenge. So was it too hard? Was it too easy? Was it too luck-based? Third, the most fun challenge to do. And then fourth, the most entertaining challenge to watch. So these are all things we can be thinking about as we go through the bracket. We have 15 challenges on the board. I've organized them alphabetically, and since it's an odd number, the first country alphabetically is going to get a pass automatically into quarterfinals. So the Austria Ode to Joy challenge automatically makes it through. So here we go. We're going to start with round 1, Belgium Waffle Pong versus Czechia Waste Time Tell Time.
I think that right off the bat, Belgium is a bit more country specific because Czechia's was based on this old clock, but the actual components of the challenge were a bit less country specific. However, I just think it was so much fun to watch. I liked that it had multiple parts to it. and I think it was very entertaining. It looked like it would be kind of fun, even though it was definitely very challenging, and I think it seemed very failable, which just kept me super engaged. So I think Czechia beats Belgium in this one.
I feel like Waffle Pong would have been the most fun to do, and I had the most fun watching it. But Czechia is definitely more related to the country. And I honestly think that carries a little bit more weight in my mind, and it felt, well, both of them you can set up and then you can fail.
Yes.
So I think they were both fairly well-balanced challenges, but I'll let you take that one with Czechia.
Yes, let's go.
Czechia will continue on. Next, we have Denmark with the blindfolded Legos versus Finland, Angry Birds. 2 game-related ones.
It's gotta be Legos for me.
Oh, 1000%. It has all the elements.
They had to run around looking for Legos because they were both there early in the morning, so we did get to see a little bit of their surroundings.
Yes.
They had to do Legos blindfolded. It has team communication. It's so failable that we didn't know it was possible, but then they did it.
Yes.
I thought it was a perfect challenge.
Yeah.
I loved that we got to see both teams attempt it, and I do think both teams did as well as they could have with, like, the set that they chose.
Completely agree.
Everything. I just really enjoyed this challenge.
Denmark makes it on. Next, we have France, Unpopular Museum, against Germany, Local Cuisine.
I do think that Germany was a cool one in that it required some location-specific research of what region they were in Germany, what foods were related to that region. But I just think that the French challenge, ultimately, I enjoyed watching more. I found it more entertaining because they did have to kind of go to a museum, which they went to one that I never would have known existed. And then the stress of watching them set it up in that doorway, I felt like I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I think it's going to be France for me, but I think these two are really, really close. I will say it's got to be the most entertaining one to watch because both of you independently texted our group chat while watching the France one saying, I'm going to throw up.
This is a really tough one for me because I agree that France was more fun to watch, but I feel like Germany was a better challenge. But I'm willing to defer to you both. We have 2 votes for France, and I think that France was a really good challenge.
Yeah, I think the difference was in the execution. I mean, the Germany challenge was also very, like, stressful to watch, but I just think that France had a bit more components.
I do love that in our discussion, we have to be like, okay, well, this challenge was really stressful, so that's a plus for that challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have Hungary, 96 things in 15 minutes, against Italy, Limbo in Limbo. This one's quite easy for me.
It's Hungary for me.
It's Hungary. Yeah. But I would say a little bit due to the fact that I think the Italy challenge was just kind of anticlimactic. But Hungary, I did like, again, that there were kind of multiple components going on. But I do think ultimately it was not super country specific. The individual pieces of the challenge seemed like they were more jet lag focused than Hungary focused.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think both of these were some of the weakest challenges in this season, in my opinion, but Hungary definitely takes it. Also, just Sam carried that one so hard, and it was so fun to watch him absolutely power through it.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, moving on to the Netherlands Bouquet Challenge against Norway Admire Surroundings.
This is really hard because as much as I was charmed by Norway's challenge, and I do think it was location specific, I think that it was very sweet and wholesome to watch. I don't think that it was that failable personally based on where they chose to draw and observe.
Especially because they get 3 attempts. I think it's almost impossible to fully fail unless you have to forfeit.
That being said, like, I did think that it was a very sweet challenge to end on. It wasn't the most, like, tension-filled, I would say, but that almost felt right. But the Netherlands challenge just dominated so much of the season, like, talking about, is this doable? Is this achievable? That I am almost leaning towards that one just because I think that it was occupying so much of my mind during watching.
I agree.
Yeah, as much as I hate to lose the incredible Norway challenge in the first round, I think it's going to be Netherlands for me. Because they're both country specific, they're both failable, but could have been achieved. Norway seemed a lot more fun to do than the Netherlands, but both were incredibly entertaining to watch.
Yeah. So I think Netherlands will take the cake here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Slovakia, 2 castles in an hour against Sweden, IKEA Jungleskog.
This, I feel like, is also kind of an evenly matched pairing for me, because I do think that the IKEA Jungleskog was just kind of iconic. Like, I loved that it really meant that they had to think about strategically, how do we get to IKEA? They had to kind of lean on some basic Swedish language, intuitive skills. But Slovakia, I thought, was really fun to kind of run around. And I did learn something. I learned that Slovakia has a ton of castles. And it did give us the most iconic cut into the snack zone. So I did enjoy that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Slovakia for me, as much as I loved the Jungle Skog Challenge, and I loved that Badum took it with them for the rest of their trip.
Me too.
I absolutely loved, and I loved predicting it was going to be IKEA. I just feel pleased with myself.
You were
for
so
that.
on it.
That was crazy. Yeah, I loved the Sweden challenge, but I think it's going to be Slovakia for me.
I
I
agree.
agree.
All right. Moving on to Switzerland Deja Vu against Vatican City Creation of Adam. This is our last pairing of round 1.
I think it's Vatican City, but I think those were both good challenges.
I do think that they were slightly evenly matched. I think that the Deja Vu one was really fun in the execution, and I did like that they had to travel more within Switzerland than they were anticipating. But I just think that the Vatican City one felt more cohesive as a challenge. It was so relevant to the area, and it was a classic art moment on the show. So I would agree.
Yeah.
But so I think Vatican City wins here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, are we ready for quarterfinals?
Yes.
Oh boy.
First, we have Austria Ode to Joy against Czechia Waste Time Tell Time.
Austria.
It's gonna
That Ode
be
to Joy was so
Austria.
good.
I agree. Okay.
Czechia was such a good challenge, but I just think Austria has the sauce.
Austria
Yeah.
has the
Yep.
sauce. Okay. Denmark Blindfolded Legos against France Unpopular Museum.
I think it's going to be the blindfolded Legos for me.
Yeah, I think it's the Legos, but it's close.
It is
I enjoyed
close.
watching that one more, and ultimately I think that is playing a bigger impact.
And maybe I'm a little biased, but I do think that it was nice to see both teams attempt it.
Yes. Yeah.
True.
Okay, next we have Hungary 96 Things against Netherlands Bouquet.
Bouquet for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely.
Now we have Slovakia 2 Castles against Vatican City Creation of Adam.
I think it's Vatican City.
Oh, I was going to say,
say
think it's
Slovakia.
Slovakia.
Ooh.
I know, because I do think the Vatican City one was great. I do think there were limitations to the fact that they were just in this open area.
That is
They were
true.
just able to like kind of get stuff from a tourist shop. I just think Slovakia was fun in that it showed me a little more about Slovakia. And I think that is why it's edging out Vatican City for me.
No, yeah, I can be swayed. I did really like the Slovakia challenge.
Okay, so Slovakia wins this one.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay, we're getting into the semifinals. Here we have Austria Ode to Joy against Denmark Blindfolded Legos, which I would say is, for me, the hardest pairing to decide.
My gut is still telling me that it's Austria. I just think it's
Same.
awesome. But the Denmark challenge was so good also. But I think
Yeah.
Austria, because as we saw, it was so failable up until like the very last minute. And Denmark's also certainly was, but I think the strategic choices made by Ben and Adam made it more
Yeah.
doable. I think that Austria just had that tension the whole time.
Yeah, I think some of the most stressed I have been while watching this season was watching the Ode to Joy challenge.
Well, I think one of the best parts of the Austria challenge is that it really is like you have all of the tools with your 2 hands. It is 100% your fault if you fail because you can physically do it. And I just think that that's my favorite kind of challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that they just had to lock in and do it.
I love a challenge where you have to lock in.
And
Yes.
I think it probably would have been a little bit different had Ben and Adam also failed the Lego challenge.
Yeah.
Versus had they failed the Ode to Joy challenge, I think we would still be agreeing that it was a great challenge.
Yes, I agree.
Netherlands bouquet challenge against Slovakia 2 castles.
I think it's gonna be castles, but I think this is the first round that it's really playing in that bouquet was extraordinarily failable, perhaps a little too failable.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, and now we have our final 2. We have Austria Ode to Joy against Slovakia 2 castles. Which one do you think wins?
It's gotta be Ode to Joy.
It just was so good.
Slovakia is like a better challenge, especially for the location that Sam and Tom ended up being able to do it in. But Ode to Joy was one of the most iconic sequences in the season, if not the show.
I would go as far to say that Austria Ode to Joy, I think might be my favorite challenge across all of Jet Lag. Like, I just think that it is so good. And the thrill when they succeeded, was like nothing I've ever felt before watching this show. It was a
incredible.
rush. It was a total rush.
I feel like Austria is the perfect challenge. And it won. Congratulations to Austria.
Congratulations, all Austrians in the world.
And with that, I'll pass things over to Jaya.
I, of course, love a little game. And I had this idea quite a bit earlier in the season, but thought it would be fun for an end of season game, which is guess the place from a bad TripAdvisor review.
Oh boy.
I love that.
We'll start with an easy one. Has designed a very stupid bed.
What? An
Okay.
easy one.
I have a guess.
Yeah.
What's
think
your
it's-
guess?
Sweden? Malmo?
Yep, it's the IKEA in Malmo.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one, Kira.
Thank you. I got
Good
nervous
shout.
because I feel like every time anyone's like, this is an easy one, like my whole brain shuts off. I'm like, no, it's not.
The most boring place I've ever been. Maybe we were there at the wrong time of year, or maybe there is just nothing to do in blank.
Jaya, this is so tough because if we both guess something and we get it wrong, everyone's going to be angry that we called those places boring.
You're not calling them boring. This guy on TripAdvisor was calling them boring.
Okay. I think that this one is an overrated place, or a place that the reviewer thinks is overrated, which means I think it's actually a cool place that they'd heard really good things about. So I am sort of thinking Brussels. I ultimately think that Brussels is probably awesome. But I think that whoever the reviewer is was like, people told me it was so great, but I went on the worst day in winter and it was just a city.
In that case, I might guess Rome, even though I think that it has less to do with like Rome is kind of cool in any season, but I wonder if someone went in off season and it just wasn't that busy. So I'm going to guess Rome.
Okay, I love where your guys' minds was at, but no, this is a city or a town in Liechtenstein.
Oh.
Yeah.
Insulting.
I didn't want to guess Liechtenstein because that was my first gut instinct was that people are going to find Liechtenstein boring, but I didn't want to guess that.
Fell into the water. 1 star.
Oh no!
The Zurich airport. No, just kidding.
Where has water?
I'll say Copenhagen.
Where is there even water? I'll say Vienna.
This was at the Oslo Opera House, the place where Ben and Adam finished their run. I swam in the fountain. They kicked me out. 1 star.
Vatican City.
Oh, I hope it's Vatican City. I'm also gonna guess that.
It's Vatican City at the Palazzo San Carlo.
Oh my god. Obviously they kicked you out. That's crazy.
So
They
funny.
kicked you out. You're in goddamn Vatican City.
Oh my god. That's the Pope's bathtub.
Literally. Maybe the Pope wrote that.
Oh my god. You're right. That's why we didn't see him, was because he got kicked out.
He got kicked out of the Vatican.
That always happens.
Very arrogant young lady at the front desk. When you ask about a product you saw in the London store and that they don't have, then go back to London. Once you turn your back, you should help customers and not disrespect them.
Whoa.
My impulsive guess is France.
I am going to say the Amsterdam Flower Market.
This was the Copenhagen Lego store.
Oh my gosh.
The place was in ruins. Seemed like it hadn't even been used in years. So none of the seats remained. Had to stand.
Rome.
This is screaming Rome to me. Is this the Colosseum?
Ding, ding, ding. This is the Colosseum.
Oh my God. People are so funny.
God gave you beautiful mountains, which are breathtaking, but your hearts are empty beneath the facade of false kindness.
Oh my gosh. Jeez Louise.
This was like a multi-paragraph review. I'm just picking out my favorite sentence.
Oh my God. I'm like, my soul is transported.
That's devastating. I'm going to say Oslo, because that's the place where I've most recently seen what's the word? Topography?
Beautiful mountains?
Beautiful mountains. That's the place where I've seen beautiful mountains most recently.
I'm gonna say Bratislava.
Ooh, this was the Sandefjord airport.
Oh my God, this airport is making everyone feel so
People have
emo.
a lot of feelings about the airport.
So funny.
If you want to buy 2 different fish, you have to get 10 of them. Makes no sense. And the reply was, some fish live in schools, and we have an animal welfare department.
That is so funny.
Oh my God,
What has good fish?
I'll say Helsinki.
I'll say Norway.
This was at the Maastricht Flower Market, where Sam and Tom were in the
That's
Netherlands.
so random.
And finally, a theme that I saw at multiple places. The only central place in the world without a post office.
Liechtenstein.
The only central place in the world without a post office.
Place is more specific, but I'm
Okay.
making it less specific, so I don't give it away.
Maybe not Liechtenstein, because it's actually not that central.
I'll say Vatican City.
No, I am going to say Liechtenstein.
This was the Vilnius airport.
What?
That makes so much sense. That
Wait,
makes so
why?
much sense.
Apparently airports tend to have post
Yes.
offices, which makes a lot of sense, but
Totally.
I never thought about it. I've just gone to
sending
post
stuff
boxes
to a-
on my way to the airport.
No, you mail stuff out of an airport.
Oh.
With that, I will pass it to Kira for conclusions.
Amazing. We're going to head into Rosebud Thorn, but since we're at the end of a season, our Bud is actually going to be sort of predictions, sort of hopes and dreams for season 13.5, which is the new season that was just announced, which is a 2-episode special where Adam and Amy take on Sam and Ben in New York hide and seek. So, Casey, do you want to start us off?
Yes. My Rose, I was charmed by many of the challenge moments in this episode. I loved the Skog-filled jaunt through IKEA. I loved Sam's gentle encouragement of Tom's slingshotting and the serene sunset in Norway. I just thought that there were a lot of beautiful challenge moments. My thorn, look, the jet lag crew are professional athletes, which makes jet lag a sport, which makes me a sports fan, which means that I absolutely earned the right to be bummed out that my team lost. Sam and Tom were solidly in the mix until the final string of steals, and I was definitely very sad to see them lose. But my bud is that I cannot wait for Team Sam and Ben versus Team Adam and Amy in that New York hide and seek. And my prediction is that one team will hide in Central Park.
That's a good one.
Jaya, what about you?
I had so many roses for this episode. I really loved this one. Oslo in winter looked really nice. I think one of my favorite things was that the trophy sequence really rocked. Especially the bit where they dropped it and then there was smashing sound effects.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that. My thorn... I'm really sad that Sam and Tom failed Angry Birds, but I really don't blame Tom at all for that.
No, not at
and
all.
I hope he just doesn't feel too bad about it, because he seemed really beating himself up about it, and that made me sad. My prediction for season 13.5, the one note that I took on it was Team Bam, OMG, I'm gonna have to fist fight you guys, aren't I? So I am looking forward to fist fighting you guys, a diehard Team Sam fan and a diehard Team Ben fan. But I'm also really hoping that somebody tries to hide in plain sight, where they find a really big crowd of people, perhaps in Times Square, and they just try to wander around with a latte and not get noticed.
In Times
That's
Square,
crazy.
Jaya, you're describing my worst fear.
Doesn't that sound horrible?
Every time I walk through Times Square and some person dressed up as Cookie Monster, like,
I'm famously extremely afraid of mascots.
I'm so afraid. I don't like that you can't see their eyes. Okay, we don't need to get into this.
I think it's going to be good. My rose is that I thought it was a really beautiful last challenge. It felt really cinematic. It felt like a great celebration of Europe, of the Schengen zone. I thought that it was really lovely. My thorn, I mean, I'm bummed that the game ended early. And I really do respect and appreciate that they don't draw out seasons for no reason, especially once the suspense is gone. But it just felt like there was so much tension throughout the whole season, and it was so close that it sort of was a little bit of a bummer that it ended abruptly. But that's just how the Jets lag, and I thought that it was an incredible season, and even an incredible last episode. I thought that it went so well, given the shocking ending. And my bud is that I predict that in season 13.5, Sam will force him and Ben to hide in the most urban place imaginable in New York, which is already extremely urban. He just seems to love being out of nature in hide and seek. And then my sort of second prediction is that I think that Ben and Adam will maintain their kind of telepathy even though they're on different teams. I think that it's going to be silly the way they predict each other's moves.
I'm so excited for that mini season.
So good. Okay, I want to do one more really quick rapid fire wrap up of the season, where I think we should just go through and say what our favorite moment from the season was. Jaya, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I have 2/3. One, obviously, Ode to Joy. 2, footage of birds being in places that they shouldn't be, like inside the store or fighting seagulls. And 3, Ben's mostly cut out wheat facts.
Hilarious. I thought it was so good.
Iconic.
Casey, what about you?
I mean, obviously, Ode to Joy was one, but I think that the other top moment from the season for me was the Name 100 Women absolute failure by Sam and Tom. I just thought it was so funny.
That was a great moment. For me, of course, also Ode to Joy. It was a perfect moment. It was a perfect challenge. And then also, I just loved the touristy day in Rome. I loved when they went to the Colosseum.
Yeah.
I thought it was so lovely. And with that, thank you for waiting at Baggage Claim. Let us know your thoughts on socials at baggageclaimpod or over email in the episode description. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a comment or give us a follow. Thanks everyone for listening to our podcast this season. This was an experiment and we're so happy we're reaching jet lag fans. We'll be taking next week off and then we will cover NYC hide and seek. Stay tuned for our off-season episodes coming soon. So we'll see you in 2 weeks at the surprise baggage claim. It only appears to you when you're least expecting it. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Adam said, "There's no one in the world who knows how to pronounce the O with the slash in it," when they were in Twinsburg.
That made me Google how to pronounce it, and it's like,
Yeah, it's like an
Well, I looked it up, and it was like, it's the vowel in blue, but it's not. It's the vowel in blue if you pronounce it in a French accent. It's like, bleu.
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 But then I'm like, that's the wrong way to tell me how to pronounce it.
I'm going to cut this part out. When I said Copenhagen, I meant...
Casey, I honestly fully believe that.
I really, like, that's what I was envisioning, is like, there was that beautiful water.
I don't think you need to cut it out. I think that's the funniest thing you've ever said.
I'm cutting it out.